Hey, what is up everyone? Tyler Ramsbey here, back with another video. If you follow my YouTube channel, you may be wondering to yourself, like, Tyler, where you been, right? I was making videos every single week doing hacking walkthroughs, and I've been kind of MIA for about 2 weeks. And where I've been is I have been studying. So the time that I would have spent working on YouTube, I've been going through a course through TCM Security. If you never heard of them, Google it. TCM Security and the Cyber Mentor. An amazing resource. I purchased a course through them on Windows privilege escalation, and that's what I've been working on. And the reason for that is I'm actively studying for the OSCP, which is a certification through Offensive Security, which is the makers of Kali Linux. It's one of, if not the most difficult cybersecurity cert you can get in the offensive security world. And you get 24 hours to hack into 5 machines, a mix of Linux and Windows and even Active Directory. And then another 24 hours to write a professional pen test report. And that is how you pass the certification. So it's hands-on hacking. Now, I've gotten pretty comfortable with hacking things like hacking into a Linux computer and elevating my privileges to root because I'm just more comfortable with Linux when it comes to the terminal command line type stuff. Windows, on the other hand, I'm of course comfortable with the GUI because I've used Windows my entire life. But one of my weak areas is hacking into a Windows machine and then elevating my privileges to NT Authority System, which is like the Windows equivalent of root. So I purchased that course. I've been spending my time going through it, taking a bunch of notes, and I finally made it to the capstone portion of it, which gives me 5 machines to hack. No notes, and to do it on my own with the skills that I've learned over the past couple of weeks. And I've taken down 2 of the machines so far. And I want to share with you the first machine, which is Arctic. Just kind of a fair note, or not really a warning, but just so you know, we're going to go through this relatively fast. But if you're doing this as well, or if you tried it and you got stuck, I'm not a genius, right? So this box has taken me hours. I actually got stuck at one point in time, frustrated, went to bed, woke up the next day. And I don't know if you ever have this when you're stuck on something, but I was doing something completely unrelated, and then an idea popped in my head on how I could elevate my privileges. One more thing to check, and sure enough, it worked. So although I'm going to walk through it, and I want to teach you how to do it, because I've learned that I learn best by teaching, just know that I did not do it this fast the first time I did it. It was a lot more thinking, a lot more enumeration, a lot more scanning to figure out what my attack vector was going to be. But hopefully this is helpful for you, either just interesting if you're interested in this, or if you're working on Windows privilege escalation stuff as well. Maybe we can go on this journey together and you'll learn something from me, and maybe you can share something in a YouTube comment, maybe something I missed or another vector, and I can learn something from you. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen. We are using, I'll just show this to you guys, we are using HackTheBox today. You saw a previous video from me. I talked through TryHackMe. Both HackTheBox and TryHackMe are incredible resources. The difference between them is TryHackMe is a lot more beginner friendly. It holds your hand, provides a lot more walkthroughs, whereas HackTheBox is a lot more challenging, and HackTheBox has some really good Windows machines for practice. So the one we're doing today is Arctic. And as always, let's just put Arctic in our etc host file. It just makes life a little bit easier for us when we're going through the box. So IP for Arctic is 10. Whoops. Maybe if I put numlock on, that would be a good starting point. 10.10.10.11. We'll call it Arctic. Arctic. I'm going to misspell that every single time. Arctic. .HackTheBox. Let's go ahead and save that. Close it out, and let's ping. Let's make sure we have a connection to it. And we do have a connection. So the first thing that we want to do is, let me just change my terminal name. We'll call it Nmap because we're going to do Nmap on here. And let's just do a quick scan at first. So the way I do that is, well, you want to scan all the ports because sometimes on these capture the flags, or even in a real life situation, there are ports that aren't common ports, so you won't get them with a quick Nmap scan. So let's do Nmap. We'll do all ports. That's what that means. And we're going to do Arctic.HackTheBox. And let's do -V for verbose. And while that does its thing, it's 135. So that's probably RPC, or you might be able to connect to it with SMB client. I know that that's not the attack vector. While that's doing its thing, I'll just kind of give you guys a hint. There is a web server on here running at, if I remember right, I think it's 8,500. And that's going to be our initial attack vector. Yeah, there it discovered it right there. So basically, if I was doing this when I did it the first time, I scanned all these ports, did another Nmap scan, focus on the ports that I know are active and alive, and then did a -A, because that means throw all the enumeration scripts at it, and I learned that 8,500 was a web server. So let me show you guys what is hanging out at 8,500. So let's just head on over there. It was Arctic HackTheBox. And I've noticed this machine for some reason takes a little bit to load when it comes to HackTheBox and getting on it. So it might take a second for us to get there. In the meantime, I'm going to show you, well, let's go ahead and set up our folder for Arctic. What I like to do whenever I'm doing a machine is just set up a folder so we can keep everything organized. So we're going to make directory Arctic, and we'll cd into that. We got nothing in there, so that is good. So we'll set that up, and let's check on our browser. Oh, see, I'm already missing something, probably because I'm making the video. We have to connect to the port. So in order to connect to a non-standard port for a web browser, first you type in the IP. The reason I'm not doing the IP is I put in my etc host file, and you're going to type in the port number. So we're going to go to 8,500. And I bet we will get a little more luck there. What it tries to do by default with just HTTP is connect to port 80, because that's the default port for that. And so that's what it's trying to do. And of course, there is no web server at port 80, so it would not connect properly there. Okay, so we got something. That's this weird page. The first thing I did, and if you're doing CTFs, just Google stuff. So I saw like CFIDE. Of course, these are directories, so we will click into them. But I thought, what exactly is CFIDE? So I just Googled it, and I learned it is Cold Fusion. All right, so we got Cold Fusion here. Let's click CFIDE, and we'll see where this directory leads us. In the meantime, let's check on our Nmap scan. Okay, and so here's what I did when I did the actual scan. Now that we know what IPs are up, you would do nmap.p, and then the specific ports you want to scan. So we know that all these ones are up. 49154-A. That means throw all the enumeration scripts at it. Takes more time. You're going to get better results. -V for verbose. And I often output it to nmap. Well, we'll want to do it in home, Kali, Arctic, nmap.text, just so it takes the results of the nmap, and it's going to create a new text file called nmap.text, so we can refer to it throughout our pen test if we want to. Of course, we won't actually use that now because I already know the port we're using, but just to demonstrate what that looks like, what it should do already is that I already created that. So if I cat it, it's going to start filling that in for us. So for now, we'll clear that out. Let's jump back to here. And you notice there's a few different things here. Now, if we were doing a legit pen test, you would want to look into every single one of these, enumerate every single one of these, see if there's anything interesting or of note for you. But we're going to click administrator, because even when I did it, that was the first thing I clicked, because I assumed it says administrator might be a good place to start. And we also know it's Cold Fusion. So because we know it's Cold Fusion, one of the things that we can do is if we open up our Kali Linux machine and do Searchsploit, we can type Cold Fusion, and you're going to notice there are a bunch of vulnerabilities for Cold Fusion. And as we look through our different vulnerabilities, one of the ones I tried the first time, I'm just glancing over at my notes, was this remote command execution. If I remember right, for some reason I couldn't get it to work, but I'll show you guys what I did differently. As I said before, this takes a while to load. So okay, it's slowly loading administrator. While it does that, if you don't know what Cold Fusion is, which is always a good thing to do, just look up what is Cold Fusion software. And it says Adobe Cold Fusion is a commercial, rapid web application development computing platform created by blah, blah, blah. It was originally designed to make it easier to connect simple HTML pages to a database, which is probably one of the reasons it has so many vulnerabilities. We have rapid web application and databases involved. That just sounds like a recipe that is not gonna go too well. So we are at the admin portal right here. It's actually still loading for us, and it is being extremely slow. Apparently everybody else is hanging on HackTheBox and trying to hack stuff. One of the things that we are going to learn as it pops up is it's going to tell us, there we go, thank you. We have Adobe ColdFusion 8. So then that kind of narrows down what exploits we are looking for. So if we go back to Searchsploit, you'll notice we have a few different ColdFusion versions. So the RCE one is the one I tried, but if I remember right, you needed administrator access. And of course, I don't have administrator access. I also tried doing like your simple SQL injection, and that didn't work either. So I want to show you guys what I found. And this was through just Googling Adobe ColdFusion 8. And I might even, let's do ColdFusion 8, if I can spell ColdFusion 8 exploit GitHub. And we'll see if I can find the exact one. Because I did, was it Goliath? It's a person I found. But one of the things you'll notice is a lot of CTFs is doing research and figuring out kind of what you're looking for. And I want to show you guys the script that I found. That was a pretty fascinating script. It was from this Goliath person, this ColdFusion _ shell. And you can kind of read through what it's going to do for us. Basically what it does is it pulls down the admin password, but it's a hash. So if we're able to get the hash of the admin password, we of course don't have admin yet because we still need to crack the hash, and I'll show you guys how to do that. But all we're going to do is, we know this is a Python script. You can tell, if you know Python, you can tell by the language, otherwise it has the .py up there. And so let's go ahead and just copy our Python script, and let's call this password hack.py. You can name it anything that you want. We're going to paste this in here, and I will show you how this works. So if we just try to run it, first we have to make it executable. And now if we try to run it, it says, here's what we have to do. We run it. We got stage, which is 1. We'll just leave it at 1. Host, that is who we're attacking, and the port we're attacking them on. So let's go ahead and try that. We'll do that. Stage 1, our host is arctic.hackthebox, and our port was 8500. So what it's doing is it's essentially going through here. This is kind of a trick for local file inclusion type stuff, and it's trying to go through here and take down the password properties file that is in ColdFusion, one of the many vulnerabilities. And you can see it already pulled it down for us. So we have a password here. This is going to be the admin password to log into the admin panel. But as you can tell, it is encrypted. So they are practicing a good practice by not serving it in clear text. But the problem is it is a pretty weak encryption. So let's just echo this. Whoops. Oh my goodness. It like totally murdered my my copy and paste there. Let's echo that into password.text. Just make sure it went in there. Whoops. Make sure it went in there good. And it did. And now we have John the Ripper. Now with John the Ripper, there's a lot of different things you can do. You can specify different word lists. But the first thing I try to do is just use the default John word list and see if I can crack the password real quick. And it's as easy as typing John, password.text. And look at that. John already cracked that password. The password is happy day. So if we jump back to our admin panel, let's type happy day. Let's log in. And I mean, I don't really want to save it because I'm just in this for this machine. So we'll hit don't save. That will take a little bit to log in. As it does that, let's jump back over to here. The next thing that we're going to have to do is eventually we're going to create a shell. Now, you would learn this if you were reading up on ColdFusion, which is how I learned it. ColdFusion, you can use a Java to get shell. Let's just jump back here. Is it logging in finally? Okay, that definitely wasn't the invalid password. Happy day. Is it happy day or happy days? This is the importance of notes. Let's jump back over here. Happy day. I don't have caps lock on, do I? Nope. I don't know how I managed to mess up spelling happy day, but whatever. Let's go ahead and try to log in. And I think we are in luck here. Since we got to this enter.cfm, I think it's going to pull us in. In the meantime, let's go ahead and create our shell so that it's ready for us. And what we're going to use to create our shell is something called Msfvenom, which is a way that you can create payloads. And if you go to Google and just type in Msfvenom cheat sheet, there's a lot of cheat sheets that show you how to create a specific reverse shell, how to get the payload ready, in whatever language you want to use it in so that it connects back to your machine. So as I type this, just know that I don't have these things memorized. I Googled the Msfvenom cheat sheet. I understand how Msfvenom works, which is important, but you don't need to have all the payloads memorized. So as you can see over here, we are getting logged into the admin panel. While it does that, let's jump back to our shell. We're going to type Msfvenom, which is built into Kali Linux, -p for the type of payload that we want. We're going to do Java, JSP, shell, reverse, TCP. Our L host is going to be RIP, which I don't even know what mine is right now on HackTheBox. We're 10.10.14.14. So our L host is going to be 10.10.14.14. And this is saying this is the IP I want the machine, my victim machine, to connect back to, namely my machine. That's how we set up a reverse shell. Our L port, this can be anything you want. We're going to make it 1337 because we are elite. And you notice we're finally getting here. I'm going to open a few things here. When I first did this, I clicked through this to figure out where it was at. And I also Googled like cold fusion reverse shell. And I learned two things. We have to go to mappings and we have to go to scheduled task. We're going to schedule a task that creates our file, that creates the shell for us. It's actually a pretty unique way of doing it. I was excited when it finally worked. But anyways, we got our L host for our IP, our L port, -f, which means we want to create a file. And we're going to call our file shell.jsp. So actually, we can just call it shell because I think when we go into the machine, we can name it .jsp. So let's just call it shell. This is see if I typed everything right. If I did it all right, it should create a file for us called shell, which will be what we use. So let's see ls. We do have it. So the other thing that we need to do is we need to host a web server. Because the question is, now that we have this shell, we of course need to download the shell from our computer onto our victim's machine. So how do we do that? Well, with Python, you can actually set up a web server on your attack machine so you can host files out and then use a command on the other machine to download that file. So let me just show you. We're going to do Python 3-m for module, HTTP server 80. Oh, maybe if I typed it right. I think I'm getting Python 2 and Python 3 mixed up in my head for a second. Is it HTTP? In Python 2, it's like simple HTTP server. Oh, I missed the period. HTTP.server 80. Is that what it is? There we go. So what we're doing now is everything in my Arctic folder is being served from my IP on this web server from port 80. Now, if we go back to our tasks, we need to schedule a new task, which once again, it's going to take a little bit. In the meantime, this pulls up the mappings. The CFIDE, if you remember from when we were doing our enumeration, that is what's being hosted right now on port 8500. So if we're able to put a file in this folder, then we should be able to navigate to that file and trigger a shell. That's going to be our goal. So we need to copy that directory path. Eventually, this will come up with the schedule a new task. And I think what I'll do is I'll just pause this real quick and I'll jump back when this pulls up. Okay, welcome back. So we got our task pulled up. We'll just call our task name like pwn because we are going to pwn this machine. and our URL. So this is where do we want to download it from? Now this is going to be our attack machine. So I'm going to type in my IP. I think that's what it was. Let me just check one more time. Yep, 10.10.14.14. And then we want to do shell, because that's what it's called on our machine. And we want to save the output to a file. And we want to call that shell.jsp. Hopefully that works. And we are going to click... Oh wait, no, I almost messed it up. This is where we need to go back to this path right here. And we need to specify the path here. And then we'll do, whoops, shell.jsp like that. And we are going to click submit. And once again, it takes a second, so I'll just pause and come right back as soon as it's done. If you're following along on your own, just know that it takes a minute or so for it to go through. Okay, it went through. And so this is showing our task here right now. What we need to do now is run the task, which is this green button. So we are going to click run scheduled task. Once again, that's going to take a little bit. So in the meantime, let's open up our machine. And here's our web server. I'm just going to name that so I know what it is in case we need to come back to it and do any more files. Our terminal will move right there. And what we're going to set up here is a shell, a netcat, in order to catch the shell, I should say, which is netcat and VLP. And then we did 1337 if I remember right. We'll rename this as shell. And what will hopefully happen is when we open that shell file, the web server is going to reach out to our attack machine on that IP on port 1337, and we should get shell access to the Windows computer. We're going to be a low-level shell, and then we need to escalate our privileges. And that's one of the big things I've been working on. So let's open this up. Oh, okay. So we got an error. The username password text are for editing a scheduled task, blah, blah, blah. The domain night side, try using the IP. Okay, interesting. So our task failed. I'm just going to open this up. Let's see our web server. So something is going weird with our IP, I think. So let's go ahead and look at processes, and let's kill 9.112.002. And let's try that again. mhttp.server 80. And we should be, let's try to ping Arctic. Yep, and I can ping it. In the meantime, I'll show you guys the Nmap file, which it would be a nice thing if we were stuck. We can always pull this back up and walk through what is showing on here. For Nmap, some of that initial scanning, I'm not entirely sure why it failed. So I'm going to, actually, I'll just pause the video. I'll figure out why it failed and we'll jump back to it. I don't want to waste your guys' time. 1 second. Okay, I figured out what it was. So on my task, I had a space before C. So when I specified the file path, which just caused it to error out, I deleted that space, redid the task, and it says the scheduled task was completed successfully. So let's just jump back here, make sure our shell is running on 1337, which it is. And now, here's the moment of truth. If we go back here, we'll do shell.jsp, and let's see what happens. Fingers literally crossed to see if it breaks again. Let's hit enter. And now, I was worried the first time I did this because it takes a while, but once again, this machine is just kind of slow. And I don't know if it's because it's running Windows. I've noticed every Windows machine I hack, I try to get access to, just seems to be extremely slow compared to the Linux machines. And you will notice, ladies and gentlemen, we just got shell. So we have our low level access on here. And what we can do is look to see if we can find like the user flag. So cd users, see who we have, cd tallest, and I bet that's who I am, right? Yep, I am tallest. So dir cd desktop dir type user.text, and there is the user flag. And what we need to do now is elevate our privileges. One of the cool tools I kind of knew about but never used that much is Windows exploit suggester. It's actually a Python script. And the way you do that, first we need to download it because I don't even have it on this new VM I spun up. So I'll actually walk you through that process. But what we need is the system info from the Windows computer, which you can get hopefully by typing system info in command prompt or in your shell. And what we're going to do is we're going to copy all this, all this system info right here. We'll copy that. Let's go back to our terminal and let's gedit sysinfo.txt. We're just going to make a file. Let's paste that in there. And I'm trying to think if Windows Exploit Suggester is built into Kali. It is not, unless I'm typing it wrong. Is it? I think it's Exploit Suggester. So let's go ahead and download it ourselves. Windows Exploit Suggester.py. Here it is. We can just grab this guy. And honestly, we can just do raw. We can copy the script. Jump back to our machine. We'll do gedit Windows Exploit Suggester.py. Paste it in. Hit save. Perfect. ls. Let's make it executable. And it is. And now I'll show you what happens if you just try to run it. It's going to tell us not enough argument. So if you do that and type -h for help, it'll tell you kind of what you need to do. I've done this enough times so I understand what you have to do. But the first thing you need to do is you actually have to generate a database. And this is a database that it runs against. It takes the system info, runs it against this database to figure out what vulnerabilities might exist. So if we do update, it created that database. You'll notice it's that 2204 right there. So now if we run Windows Exploit Suggester, do I, if I remember right, for systeminfo.txt, we'll do -d for our database and hit enter. And now what it's doing is it's taking, once again, that system info, comparing it to the database, and telling us what vulnerables are here. So there's a few different vulnerables that you'll want to pay attention to. Anything with Internet Explorer, I generally ignore because that will usually require user input. But we have these Windows kernel vulnerabilities, and that's going to be kind of key. If you are doing a CTF or anything like that, if you see any type of kernel exploit, I always would just encourage, try that first and see if you can get anywhere with a kernel exploit. The one that worked, or that there's probably multiple ones that worked, but the one that I did was this MS10.59, if my memory serves me correct. I'm just glancing over at my notes. Blah, blah. Yep, MS10-59. So this is going to be the exploit that's going to be key for us. So we'll just go ahead and copy that. Make sure our shell is still up. Let's go down here. It is still up. So let's open up Firefox. Let's see if we can find this exploit. We might have to click through a few of these. I'm going to check this one. I think this might be the one that we want. Maybe. There was, let's check this one. Okay. This is what we want. We want this .exe. So let's click that. If you're using Chrome, it might error out if you try to download it because it says it is malicious. So if that happens, you might just have to change it over to Firefox. This is one thing that I've noticed when I'm in Kali Linux. So let's go ahead and download that beast. Pop open back our terminal. Let's copy from home, Kali, downloads, ms, and let's copy to our current directory. And we have it, that ms10.059.exe. What we have to do now is get that on our machine. And if you remember, we still have our web server running right here. So let's go to our shell, and you need to go to a directory that is writable by your user. Sometimes if you're on an account that doesn't have its own folder, you can go to the temp folder and that will work. I'm assuming that the desktop here is writable by me, so I'm just going to use the desktop since I am this tallest person, whoever it is. And in order to get it to download it from my attack machine to my victim machine, it's the cert util command, .url cache, .f, f meaning file, and I just have this command memorized because I've used it so many times. This is going to be RIP 14.14, and then it was, what was it, MS10. I'm just going to copy it so I don't screw it up. MS10, and we'll just call it, for ease of use, we'll just call it ms.exe once it gets on our victim machine. See if I typed the command correct. Hopefully I did. And the one thing that we can check is if you jump to your web server, we should see a GET request, which we do. Let's go to our shell. It says the command completed successfully, and it is in there. So if you do ms.exe-h, I think would be the flag, this is going to tell us how to do this. So it says we use it, chimichurri, I called it ms.exe, IP address, that is going to be our attack IP and the port. So we're going to set up another shell. So let's open a new terminal. We can just name it like, we'll call it system shell in faith that it's going to work. And we'll set up another ncat or netcat, and we'll call this port 1338 because 1337 is already in use. So let's get that listening. And then let's just follow the steps here. So let's do our ms.exe. We're going to do our IP 14, and then our port is going to be 1338. And let's see what happens. Oh, I added a slash there. I got too excited when I hit my enter key. Let's try that again. Now, eventually, look at that. We got a shell on here. If we do who am I, we are NT authority system, which is the Windows equivalent of root. So if we go back just a ways, if we go to administrator, cd desktop, dir, we have root.txt, and we just pwn this machine. We are NT authority system. So you'll even notice as I was going through this, there was some hiccups, which if you ever do any CTF, you run into a lot of hiccups, and you get really good at figuring out why is this not working. Sometimes you have to edit the exploit, which is why it's good to know coding a little bit, to know Python a little bit, because you'll have to edit the exploit to make sure it actually works. But that is the Arctic machine on HackTheBox. And I will keep doing a few different Windows machines because I think it exposes us to something a little bit different and something that's more, I don't know if realistic is the right word, because a lot of corporations run Windows. Servers often do Linux as well, so it's good to know both. But that is the thing that I'm weak on. That is what I'm learning. So hopefully you learned something from this video. I will catch you guys in the next one.